Hi, everybody. This is Blaine DeSantis, and I welcome you to another edition of Books and Looks. Yes, our weekly voyage of discovery in the wonderful world of books. Books that I've been reading and interviews I've had with authors. Before we begin today's show, I do want to say to you, I apologize for maybe the quality, the sound quality of everything. As we record, I am still suffering from COVID, okay? And I might not sound right. I might be coughing a little bit, whatever. We'll try to edit this the best we can. But if it's not up to the top quality, know that it's not because I'm not trying. It's just with COVID, you don't feel that good doing anything. So, anyway, hey, listen, we are joined today by a wonderful new author, Laura Essay. Laura is coming to us from Lincoln, Nebraska, and she's a former attorney, and she has written a book called Side Effects Are Minimal. What a perfect title to talk about prescription drugs and opioids. You know, you get these things, oh, the side effects of this are minimal. Don't worry about it. Uh-huh. And then you have problems. This is an outstanding book to discuss the problem of opioids. Oh, it's all out there, friends. You read it in the paper. May have friends who've had problems. Opioids. Where do they come from? How big is the problem? It's everywhere, okay? And this book is about a novel, about a criminal trial. Not a criminal trial. It has some phraseology like a criminal trial, but it's actually a civil trial, okay? About bringing a company to bear about the damages that are happening to people from these opioids. Very fascinating discovery, research, everything else. You're going to really enjoy this because it's filled with interesting characters. It's filled with lots of details, stuff we got to be aware of no matter what. Okay, and that's the one thing I want you to pay close attention to in this interview because we are learning a whole heck of a lot. I found out things in the interview that I didn't know when I started the interview. That's how much Laura knows about this topic. So let's, you don't want to hear me. Let's go right into the interview with Laura Essay. Hello, Laura. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing wonderful. It's great to be here. Thank you for asking me.
We're glad you're here. And as I told my people in the, in the introduction, I've got COVID, but I don't want to miss this interview because I think it's going to be fascinating. We're going to learn a whole lot about opioids today, and I'm really excited about this topic that you delved into today in your novel. But before we get into the book itself, tell us a little bit about Laura. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? Where did you go to college, law school, etc.? Give us a little background.
Mostly I grew up in Pennsylvania. I was born in Indiana, then moved to North Carolina, then moved to Pennsylvania. And my senior year of high school, I moved to Nebraska, kicking and screaming, of course, thinking, where are they taking me? But it was a wonderful experience. The people here were fabulous. I'm still here. I went to college at the University of Nebraska, and then I went to law school at Creighton University. And I've done a lot of philanthropic work. I focused on raising my family. I was assistant attorney general, but I did a lot of philanthropic work and I encountered a lot of situations and I've always loved writing. I was a grant writer for the Arbor Day Foundation. I was a grant writer for the Manzanita School District in Arizona. Writing has always been a part of my life. And then when this topic came up, I dove into it more out of curiosity. Is it propaganda or is it real? I mean, we all know, we see the drug addicts in the alley, but they're not us. My eyes were opened when I got into the research of what it really entails.
Wow. Okay, well that's great. Now, did you go into private practice at all, or were you always your first job as a lawyer, as the attorney general, assistant attorney general?
I clerked in private practice, but I was assistant attorney general. And then the commuting for that and the balancing my family um, just was not conducive to a peaceful life. And so I got into heavy volunteer work and grant writing.
Did uh, did you have an area of expertise that you concentrated on when you were the assistant attorney general?
I was in the criminal division. I did appellate criminal work, and I was surprised at how much because 'cause I'd clerked during law school in private practice. I did no litigation. I did a lot of contract and real estate, um, but I really enjoyed what I was doing at that level, and, kinda saw a darker side in some situations, and then I saw a technical side. People, appeal for not for just technical reasons, and then I saw people that really did bad things, and, I felt like I was on a good I was very comfortable where I was, on the side I was, and I liked the appellate work.
Great. Very good. And you said you've always liked writing. Now, did you write fiction from the beginning? Were you starting at a young age?
I oh, I mean, as soon as I could hold a pencil, I was writing. I was writing nonsense and fun things and doing whatever little girls write about all the time, and then I would enter any contest I could. I won a district level trophy in the 3rd grade for a 1,500 word poem on the Wright brothers on the world, and then wrote through high school and attorneys in law school. That was one of my favorite things was drafting briefs and memorandums and that sort of thing. This was my first fiction adventure.
Did you ever take any creative writing courses?
Nope.
No. Okay. I didn't know if you took any. Some take night courses or go to community colleges. You just dove right in. Wow.
Yeah, I did. I just like I said, it came natural to me. I just always liked doing it.
That's great. You may have just touched on it a little bit, but let's get more in a little more detail. What motivated you to write the book, and what motivated you to right now?
The news. I remember sitting on the couch watching a news report of another person who an overdose situation, and it was bringing in big pharma and the doctors, and it was bringing in those aspects of the story, and I thought, "What how real is this? How much is propaganda?" And like I said earlier, I saw we know the drug addicts, we see them, and we know to, walk on the other side of the street when you see them on one side, and so I started just researching, and I got sucked down the rabbit hole. One thing led to another, and then I started to see this picture isn't us and them, it's us and us. You and I can sit here today and how we are, but there's no guarantee that a month from now or a week from now, things won't change.
And very true. Very true. So there was a lot of research. How long did you do the research? Did you were you able to do it in a couple weeks or a couple months, or how long did that take?
A couple years.
Couple years. Okay.
Yeah, it was years of this because opioids are fluid. It's a changing situation. And where it is now is different than where it is in my novel. My novel leads right into it and it touches on it. And I won't give a spoiler, but the ending of my novel is very unexpected and it's very much the direction the opioid crisis is going. But at that time, I could not find substantial statistics to give numbers and actual accounts of what happens. But I mentioned this to a group I was speaking with yesterday, and, a woman said, "Oh, yeah, she knew 2 situations like the ending of my novel." So it's happening more and more, it's where it's going.
Yeah. Well, that's it's fascinating because I get books sent to me all the time. I get books sent to me from NetGalley, from publishers, and PR people, but I've never had a book that went so heavy into the opioid research as yours did, and that's what really fascinated me. Very, very well done. Very, very well. It it really opened my eyes, and I'm hoping it's going to open up the reader's eyes to the crisis that we have in this country. And I mean, if I had a hat, tip of the hat. I mean, that's what just a great job, just a wonderful job.
Thank you, thank you. That was my goal, was just getting the information to people in a very digestible way, in a way they could embrace it and remember it. And you remember characters, you're connected to characters. I could send them a report, and we all get data drops daily. And what do we remember? And the newspapers, we get those situations, but those come and go, and they're so heavy that I thought, wrap it in fiction where people can remember Claire or Emma or Molly. I mean, they can remember individuals and then maybe think twice before they make a decision or on taking and opioids are not bad. There is a place for them and they are very needed. They are a great aspect of medicine, but they need to be used properly.
Okay. Well, then let's just go into the book a minute and let's talk a little bit about the book, the premise, some of the plots and main characters. Let's not get too much in spoilers. We'll get questions and everything, but tell us a little bit about the overall direction of the book.
The overall direction is an attorney. And again, I was an attorney, so I could relate to that character. And she's given a situation that hits close to home. and she has decisions of right and wrong and how far to go, and she can be the champion now if she chooses and make up for some of the past decisions or the past situations, not her decisions, the past situations she's had to deal with and live through. And again, I think that is can resonate with a lot of people because we can all look back at, ooh, what we wish we hadn't experienced or had experienced and decided differently. And again, we can take that premise into our lives and maybe look at things differently.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. And, some of the main characters, who do we have here?
We have Claire, she's our protagonist, and she's given a legal case that she's struggling with. And then it's not all drugs and law. There is some storyline to it where she has a nemesis, which was a fellow student of hers from law school, and it's kind of the good old fashioned rivalry between two women, and that's kind of fun to hear about because one's evil, and it's always there. It's underlying surface. There's this combative situation, and then there's maybe a love interest, and maybe there's an interest between two people and they don't want to admit it and they kind of want to go because she has a co-counsel, which is a new young Alec, a new young attorney that she works with, and you always have to watch how you act and what are you drawn to or not. And then there's the opposing counsel, which is her nemesis, and then Landon, who's just a good old boy attorney, and he's done these cases all the time. And so it revolves around the death of an overdose death of a very prominent Philadelphia family. And dad is out for revenge. Dad wants blood. He's pissed. And so she has to counter his anger and justice and keep it all in balance.
Mhm. And if I'm not mistaken, the, young lady who, died, uh, she was a gymnast. Am I not mistaken?
Yes, yes,
As
yes.
were you.
And again, yes, I was a gymnast and I wanted it to be an athlete because it's based on true stories. And I can't say it's based on a true story because there's several, multiple situations where you have an athlete, they go through a medical situation, they take opioids, they become addicts. That happens all the time. And like I said, there's a very healthy, good place for opioids. And my it jumps to mind is cancer patients. They need that. And there's a chapter in my book that talks about opiophobia and opiophobia, where it was opiophobia where no one could get their it was philia. They were just flowing like crazy. And then they were discovering that these are addictive, so it went to opiophobia, and even the cancer patients who need this medication, or the 95-year-old heart patient, or that's a bad example, heart but a situation where they need it, they should be able to get it. They don't need to not to be restricted in their medical care because of inappropriate use of opioids in other situations. But again, you write about what you know, so I had her be a gymnast, and that just because I knew that a football player, I couldn't talk about football injuries, I don't know them. And I kept it very, very digestible again, very easy to read and understand.
That is very good. Well, now, you talked about phraseology, but, you used 2 words here, and, the words we all heard of, opiate and opioid. What's the difference between the 2?
Opiates are natural occurring substances. They're morphine, opium, codeine, and heroin. Those are just natural. Those are opiates. Then there's opioids, which are hydrocodone, Dilaudid, oxycodone, um, methadone, tramadol, things like that. Those are opioids. Tramadol is actually not an opioid, but it jumps into the scene and acts like one.
Mhm. Okay. Alright. So now we you bring up a difference between the initial opioids that were there, which were sort of like a fast-acting thing, to now these almost synthetic, long-acting things, and then we get heroin involved. Tell us all about this how it all grew and expanded. Tell us what what word am I waiting for, Blaine? I'm looking for the word how it grew. Let's see how it grew from A to B.
There are many players, us included, in this whole scene. You have the pharmaceutical industry, you have and you have the medical doctors, and you have insurance in there. Anytime you have a medical scene, you have insurance involved, what they're going to cover, what they're not going to cover, and then you have the patients. And what happens is that opioids did go through, and it's spelled out in the book. They went through a phase where the pharmaceutical companies, well, we all know, Purdue and that whole, and the Sackler family, that whole situation. That is much more common with other companies as well, and it's in my book. It's the same idea that they could develop drugs and make money, and the belief was, well, they're not that addictive. And I don't know a lot of the details on how the delayed release formula is different from the immediate release formula, except the obvious. It's delayed. It acts, and so it was that you don't have to take as many. So if it's delayed and you can go 12 hours till you take another, your chance of addiction is less. Well, that did not pan out. And if you are taking an opioid more than 3 months, your chances of being addicted to it are crazy high because you feel pain differently. If I'm taking opioids to deal with my pain, the pain and I'm say it's a month in, the pain I felt on day 1 is not the same as the pain I'm feeling on day 30. And it changes the chemistry in your brain because you interpret pain differently. And you're now addicted. Well, insurance isn't going to cover that medicine anymore. You're done. You can't get a script for it. That's the jump to heroin. And that's why there's facts on the end of, after you finish the story, there's facts at the end of the book. Over 80%, I've referred to the addicts we see in the alley. That's just the picture we all know of. Over 80% of those people started out like you and I. Started out with a doctor's prescription for an opioid. 80% of those. Nobody wants to be an addict. Nobody, falls into it wanting to not get out of the alley. But that's what happens. And then once you are addicted, your brain tells you you will do anything to get this medication.
Then this book is not based on one specific case, but maybe it's a amalgamation of a lot of cases you got to read about and research and then put it into your
Exactly.
book.
Exactly. I started on one, but then, like I said, when I got sucked down the rabbit hole, I was like, "Ooh, there's another. Ooh, there's another. All right, here's the CEO of this company. Here's the daughter, like in the book, the daughter of this family. It's a well-to-do family. It's not a low income. Again, there are stereotypes that got destroyed that uh, are not what happens when it comes to the opioid crisis.
Can I assume, and maybe I'm mistaken in this, but no one started out making opioids for evil intent.
Right,
They didn't know what the long-term effect was going to be.
right, right, right. And it just spiraled out of control. And then they discovered it. And like I said, that's when you got into opiophobia. Nobody could get any drugs for anything. They're awful. Well, then they discovered they aren't awful. They are a great advancement in medicine when used correctly, when there's monitoring with good physicians. And I know a lot of situations now that after you're in the hospital, you have your surgery, you're sent home, you get 4 pills to last you for, 2 a day or 1 a day. I just said 4, but you get a 2 day, that's it, and then you're done. And then they check with you. How did your body react? How did you react? Where are you with this? And so they can stop it. But again, they're trying to make it very available for those who need the medication. It's not the medication itself that's evil.
Mhm. Okay. Alright. Well, now, I just have one thing, when one lawyer talks to another lawyer, we all see things. I I'm reading the book, and I'm assuming this is a civil case, not a criminal case.
Correct.
Okay, because I
Correct.
saw the word prosecution and a verdict that was on the guilty, not guilty side. Okay. So it'd be a liability we find for the plaintiff. And was there ever an award given? If it was, I don't remember hearing about an award being given to that family, a dollar value.
No, I worded it that way and I took it more criminal sounding because I thought that would resonate with more people. They wanna hear that. They want a guilty verdict. They don't want a settlement unless you're talking billions, and then that got into so many issues, and then I could get into the whole Sackler issues where they couldn't be sued again if they agreed to this and it was a settlement, and I thought in reading that, it would bore a lot of people who aren't attorneys. They don't want that. They want them guilty. They want to know Clifford Satori won, damn it, and that justice is served. And so I worded it in a way to grip them like that, And that's why, because there's also the lawsuit, not just with the pharmaceutical company, but with the physician. And then that's where you would get into the liability again. And that was settled because people had enough of the court scene. They had enough of hearing what went on in the courtroom, and I didn't want it to get monotonous in that regard.
Even lawyers don't want to read that stuff. I can tell you that. It gets too long winded. Can't take that. Oh yeah, yeah.
Enough is enough.
No, I read some of these opinions that come out. It's like, what are you doing? 24-page opinion? No, short, sweet, to the point. Let me know what the deal is. Yeah,
Too many words. Too many
that's
words. You don't need all that.
exactly correct. Too many words. That's so true. You know, you make the doctor. I found that fascinating. Now, we have a doctor who was taking care of the young girl who died. Um, he was a rather unfeeling person, wasn't he? His associate was killed, and he didn't give a damn, basically.
In the story, yeah, he was just. I didn't want him. I didn't want to besmudge all the good physicians out there. And in any profession, you have the good, the bad, and the middle. I wanted him to be a lower level of caring, a lower level of practice, so that it would be very easy if I was a physician and say, "Well, I don't operate like that." Dr. Joshi out of, well, he was in Chicago, I don't know where he is now, but he was in a very similar situation to my novel. He's one of my endorsements, but he is a good physician. I did not want to besmudge a physician like him by making this really good physician wallow in all his horrible decisions. There are ones that step back. He just let his PA deal with her. They saw Michelle Moss. They never got to even see the doctor. So I wanted it to focus on that situation without tainting healthcare, because our healthcare system is excellent, as any system can be. I mean, it has all its flaws, of course, but I didn't want sour grapes for anything except not monitoring patients, and not and patients not taking their own responsibility for what they're putting in their mouth.
That's true, and and that's where Claire has a difficult time because Claire's sister had an issue herself, and Claire blames herself for her sister's death, and that wasn't the case at all. And there's nothing I don't think Claire could have done back then.
That was, yeah, exactly. Although she was very appropriate for how a teenager would react. A teenager would blame herself. She saw her bottle with her Zedones, or and she didn't do anything. Well, kids don't do anything. And again, that's something I think can resonate with so many people when they look back, whether it's a situation like this, but or any situation, and blame themselves and carry that guilt into their adult life, into their professions, when you really couldn't do anything. So don't blame yourself. Do things differently. Start the conversation now that you didn't know how to start then. That's my goal with this, is just getting more and more people to acknowledge and start the conversation. And I refer to this in an interview as my novel's a burrito. You have all the facts, so you can walk away knowing, and they're cited in the back of the book. So if you're questioning, is that real or not? Check the last 3 pages. Yes, it is. But you wrap it in fiction because you connect. You have an emotional connection with characters, and you can retain that. If you when your emotions are involved in something and you have a connection with something, you retain it and you carry it into your decisions.
Very, very true. Now, I wanted to ask you here now. Again, we mentioned this earlier, but I want to go back over this again because I think it's extremely important here. And to my friends, if you're listening, we're not being repetitive, but there's things we have to talk about. We all know oxycodone, we all know hydrocodone, but give us a list of some of the other of the opioids that are out there. That if we're a family member or something, we see somebody get a prescription that, hey, wait, this might be a problem. What are some of those?
I think any medication you take could be a problem. Think you need to approach it from that perspective. The more serious ones that are opioids that are tied to have a higher addictive nature to them, like I said, were Dilaudid, methadone, tramadol. They've found that. I know fentanyl is used in some situations. I'm not a medical professional, so I don't know the exact situations where these should be used or these should not be used. I do know Um, if you're in for surgery, then you're most likely you're taking something, but you need to be very aware when you leave and you're on your own. You're making the decision on what to take. Ask your doctor. Your doctor should be monitoring you, but help that situation continue. As a patient, we need to, well, he just gave me all this, so I took it. That's not how we need to be. That's what the addict says. That's what leads you right down that heroin path.
Yeah. And that's where the parents have to step in and say, "What are you doing?" They've got to do a little bit better job. And I think that's where this young girl who died, what was her name again? Is it Polly? Who died? The gymnast,
Molly,
Molly. I don't know if Molly's parents were being the most proactive parents in helping her out there. Um, didn't seem like it.
true. And you'd be surprised that that is not uncommon. They think they're watching. Are they? Are they not? Also, it says in my book, the largest group of individuals that are abusing opioids are girls aged 12 to 17. That's the largest group abusing them. And a very common place that they get them, mom and dad's medicine cabinet. I do know of a situation where a girl had a sleepover. She's 12. She had a sleepover with her friend. Her friend had a really bad headache. She couldn't do anything. She had this horrible headache. And the girl said, "Oh, I know my mom gets headaches. I know where her I'll get you something." Got her something, had her take it, too much, killed her. She went to the medicine cabinet and got what her parents took. That happens. I mean, it happens enough that the CDC put it out as a statistic, or the NHI, I can't remember which one put it out, but it's in the book and it's documented. But that is a situation we need to be aware of. We need to empty our medicine cabinets, and we need, like you said, we need to watch our children because they can get it easily. And I had a woman ask me, she's a cancer patient, she's on opioids, she's not having any problem at all. And she was just glad that she's in stage 4, that she could have some pain relief. But, um, said she made the comment, she said, "If I got addicted, I would have no idea where to get heroin." She doesn't know where heroin is. I said, "Ask a teenager. Ask anybody in any high school." They do know. I mean, it's they know. I don't know how, I don't know why, but just ask a teenager.
There's a common knowledge out there. Wow, very interesting. Well, now one of the things that you bring up here, and this is a fascinating. I never even realized this. The difference between acute pain and chronic pain, and how that also factored into the growth of the opioid situation. Tell us a little bit about that.
Um, Acute pain is you cut your finger, you have pain. Ouch. You have surgery. They're slicing up your body. I had a friend who just had hip surgery. They cut off her leg, they put a hip thing at that, and she has acute pain right there. It's happening. Now, the other situation is I was cleaning the gutters and I tripped over something and I twigged my back and it hurts. I couldn't walk and it's gone on. And that's chronic. My back will never be the same. It's sore, it hurts. I tweaked something, and so it's never going to be the same back. That's chronic pain. That's where you have the prolonged use of opioids that causes the problem. That then leads to, like I said, if it's more than 3 months, your statistics, I don't remember, it's in the back of the book, are so high on addiction. So when they start and acute pain, you're in the hospital. We're going to treat your pain when we're slicing your leg open or your heart surgery or those things. That's when we do that. But then when we took opioids into chronic pain, like I said, with cancer patients and in certain situations, it is appropriate to use these drugs. They're not bad. But when I tweaked my back and I've been taking Dilaudid for 3 months, that's maybe not good. Somebody needs to be aware of that. And like I said, it's not just, you can't just look at the pharmaceutical company that made Dilaudid or the physician who prescribed it. You can look at them, but also me. I need to be aware of what I'm putting in my mouth.
Yeah. Wow. Well, now, was this always, what was there before opioids? What did they give people before opioids for this type of pain? Anything? Tylenol?
I got the funniest, I asked that of a physician the other day. I said, "So give me some alternatives." I know ibuprofen, acetaminophen, Advil, Tylenol. That's what you take. It's fine. And then he looked at me and he said, "How about ice? Ice it. You hurt yourself. I fell and my leg's all swollen up. I need a pain pill." No, you don't. You need to take some Tylenol and you need to elevate it and put ice on it. Elevate things. Physical therapy, ice, Advil or ibuprofen, acetaminophen. Those are things that work. We don't need and you know what? This is he looked at me and said, "You know what? Life hurts. Don't be a baby. It's going to hurt. I know you don't want to," and that's where I think the mindset needs to altered with some, is that, "I don't wanna hurt. I know you have a pill that will take it away." I do, but it could create more problems, and why not just, like I said, take acetaminophen, elevate it, put ice on it, and hurt for a little while. My mother fell not too long ago, and I told her, she's 86, and I said, "You know what? Next it's gonna hurt. It's going to hurt." And she said, "I know." I said, "And then you sit down for a while or put ice on it and just accept you injured yourself and it's going to hurt. You're tolerant where what you can tolerate, that's the level where you maybe take something. Again, acetaminophen and ibuprofen are fine."
Right. Now, this young girl, Molly, who died, she wanted to get back to be a top-notch gymnast. Was that a realistic goal for her? I mean, that's part of the thing. People wanna go back to the way they were. Maybe they
Right. That's an individual decision. Is it realistic or not? I don't know. That depends on the person and what they're willing to go through. I do know what Molly was doing. You can't mask the pain and then work on it. You can't, "I'll take this pill so I don't feel it," because that's how you create more of an injury. And I do know there's athletes that, just take the pain away and I'm gonna get back out there. You can't do that. Your body's screaming at you for a reason. It's screaming stop for a while, and then you can get back to it. Again, physical therapy, ice, get off it, rest it, let it heal itself. You don't need to eliminate the pain and get right back out there because that will just make it worse. You'll have to take more to alleviate the pain because then the pain will get worse because the injury's getting worse. It's a vicious circle.
right? Now, you have had some very serious injuries. You had some accidents, not your fault. Were you given opioids when you were in the hospital, or did you come home with opioids? Did you have any issues with that at all?
I did not. I was, hit hit by a drunk driver and on my bike and that whole thing. I had a traumatic brain injury. That's not a painful situation to treat, and so opioids were not a problem for me. I had some, bruising and no bones were broken, but things were torn and messed up. Again, I remember lying on the couch because I had a pretty bad ankle, iced it, wrapped it, and you can take acetaminophen, and a little while later, you can take an ibuprofen, and so I just countered my meds that way. But I did not take an opioid because it hurt, but I was hit by a truck. Of course it's gonna hurt.
A little bit, yeah. I remember going to the hospital one time, and I had a problem, and they gave me, some, I don't know, 800 milligrams of Advil or something. Whew, that knocked me out. That was a real I took 2 of those, that's it, not doing that anymore.
But that's the thing, there are ways to that's ibuprofen. Use that. You don't get addicted to that. That has no addictive nature. So that's what people need to turn to. But because it's OTC, that's over the counter, they don't think it really works. They need a prescription. No, you don't. No, you don't. And I counter that with there are situations. These are wonderful. Opioids are wonderful meds, but there are the right situations to have them and monitor them and focus on that. I mean, when used correctly and you have a situation where you need it, I go back to the cancer patient. I would never take away their opioids when they're experiencing that kind of pain. I don't have any idea how severe that must be. But those situations, don't take it from them. Take it from me who got hit by a truck and has a bad ankle. I don't need it. Or you who went in and got 800 milligrams.
Yep, that's right. Now, one of the things we find here is that during this whole bit, you consolidated a lot of time frame here. There's discovery, and you know, people think, well, what must the pharmaceutical company turn over? What are trade secrets? When you go into that, what is everything an open book? And when you get into these type of cases like that, everything can be seen, everything has to be exposed.
Not everything, but when you offer it to the public, when you've exposed it to the public, and I'm going to sell it to you, you have to say what's in it. You have to show me what's in it. You have to show me the testing you did. You have to show me how you got it there, where you started, who promoted it, who paid for it. Once you're throwing it onto my lap, yeah, you have to do everything. There are a lot more guidelines when it comes to children, of course, but and I did not get into the details. I mean, there's so much here that I didn't get into all the details you have to follow with children versus adults and that situation. But once you are putting things out there, now, when you're first, when I first go into my lab with uh, a poppy plant and I'm doing things, what I discover today, I don't have to tell you, and that's we have copyright laws and things like that that play into this. But once I'm gonna, you know what, I'm gonna sell this as the miracle drug. Then people have a right to know what's in it, what's it gonna do, and how did you do it.
Right. And you have got one wacky scientist. Yeah, that guy cracks me up. All he does is play with his monkeys or whatever. That tells a little bit about him.
That's I love hearing that because that's what I wanted to do because it's such a serious, scary topic, and most people, that whole 6 degrees of separation, Kevin didn't even know how close this was. Most people are going to know of someone who's going through this or went through this that I didn't want you to read the book and think, "I can't take this anymore. I gotta take a break." Or what just happened to me? I wanted to add, like I said, the little love interest, maybe, maybe not, the rivalry between the women, and add a little not humor, but like you said, he cracked you up. I wanted him to be that crazy scientist we all thought about when we were in junior high science class, or Phil Nye the Science Guy. I wanted it to be just a little lighter, but yet still get the point across that his ego was maybe the same as some of the Sackler situation, where his ego was so big and he was so driven to not only make a name for himself or money or whatever he needed to fulfill his desires that he lost track of how serious his work was. And again, I felt a need to just lighten it up a bit, but yet still get that point across.
Hmm. Very true. Now, your book deals basically with a pharmaceutical company. Okay. And we also have a doctor involved. But there's a lot more people. And we talked about it just a little bit in the beginning, but there are a lot more people involved in this distribution of opioids. From the top, the FDA, all the way down to the person. Who's all involved? Who should we be looking at? Whose fault is this?
Everybody. That's when we're looking to blame fault. It's everybody has plays a role. And where fault lies, I don't know. We wouldn't have a problem if we knew where fault was because we could fix that. We don't know where fault is, but you have the pharmaceutical company. And I brought in the FDA approving this. That was a situation I brought in the novel to show yes, the FDA does play a role, but are people honestly submitting things to the FDA and they're hiding things? Or I mean, and what prevents them from doing that? What forces me to follow the guidelines? What forces me there are dishonest people everywhere, as in that story. What forces me to set my ego aside and think about, all right, this drug could hurt people. And that was Ethan and Phil fighting in the lab when he's like, this can hurt people. And he's like, oh, you are naive, and I don't see your name on anything. It's my name that's there, and let's get it out there. So you have that situation, but it brings up again. And you have the PA with the physician. You have assistants and that in all these situations also. Michelle Moss was, I mean, she was just out doing her thing and wanting the power of a physician. And she was just seeing the patient and signing off of his name. And again, uh, I do know of specific situations where that happened in a medical office, where somebody would sign the other doctor's name. It happens. And if I've heard of it, it's out there and it does. And so I brought in all the situations, but I also wanted people to think, you know what? All that happens, when it comes down, the very last person who has to be accountable is me. I'm the one taking the pill. Have I looked at the whole scene? Do I know where I was before? Do I see where I am now? Do I know where I want to be? And who are the players I'm interacting with? What did they do that put me here, and what is good and what is bad? And we can't just say, well, my doctor gave them to me. And the doctor can't just say, well, the pharmaceutical company made these and so they fit my practice. Everyone plays a role.
including the pharmacies that
Mhm. Oh,
dispense
yeah.
them. And that's what I've always couldn't quite figure out, how the pharmacies are sort of, flown above all this whole thing. And yet you go in with a prescription and they keep just giving them out to you.
Yeah. And I don't know, I didn't get into a lot I didn't get into that aspect of it. The pharmacy, when I go over to Walgreens or CVS to pick up my prescription, that person standing behind the counter, I don't know what they can do because I don't know that they can question the physician. They do not, and that's the other thing, they do not have access to medical records. Physicians don't have access immediately to other physicians' medical records. I have access to my medical records, I can't get yours. And that is in a way, it's a kind of a cover up, but yet you cannot break that. I mean, that is sacred in healthcare. You will never dive through people's medical records. The privacy for those are is paramount. Paramount. I mean, and so what roles people play, I don't know. I mean, I know that everybody has a role, and we just have to pay attention and ask questions.
Well, the pharmacy can't do certain things with prescriptions, but they can make my Advil cold and sinus difficult to get. You got to go to the counter. You got to give them your ID. You got get the devil out of here. I just want to take Advil cold and sinus. Well, it could be turned into this. We could be get out of here. That. Oh, they do the internet. So they make some things so difficult for you, and then the other things they should put a limit. You think that has something that I don't know. I'm not about to get into that because then what is the insurance company doing? How much are they paying for? How much are they not paying for? And if they don't pay for it, now we have robberies and theft and everything else. It's a huge spiraling problem, Laura. It's huge.
Mhm. It is, and like I said, we all are in the spiral. How do we stop it? How do we change it? I think, and what the goal of this novel is just the conversation we're having. If somebody can have a second thought on taking something because they've heard our conversation and they're aware that this is a problem, or they can notice that little girl that keeps coming to school with something, pay attention. If it can just start those conversations, I think that's the first step in maybe changing things. I do know since since the novel was published, we do have Narcan that can stop an overdose, and Narcan is in a lot of schools, and they're getting it. You and I could go and get some Narcan if we were gonna be in a situation we thought we needed it. They have made that available, and that is a huge step to stop the overdoses.
That's great. That really is good. Is that being given out by the government?
Yes.
Well, is that in every school?
It's allowed to be in every school if they try to get it. I know of some churches that have it at their church. And so when people if you're in a situation with a lot of people, if somebody took whatever and they're going through overdose symptoms, Narcan can save their life. And that has just been in the last, I think, since '22.
I've told you, friends, this is a great book. This is a great book. We're having a great discussion about the effects of opioids. And, we're learning. I never even knew about Narcan. And we're finding things out. I'm finding things out as we're doing the interview today. I mean, this book will give you a lot of information. And it's not a research book, obviously, but she couches all her research in a trial and brings it all together, and we get all this and we start to see what's doing, what's affecting everybody. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful read. So wonderful. I want to know, is there another book coming out? What's coming up next for Laura Essay? Because there's got to be something, I think.
Oh, there's a sequel to this, yes. I have
Okay.
started there's the next one. Claire's gotta have another case.
I thought so. Now, do we know what
Oh,
she
yeah.
might be dealing with? Will we still be opioids?
I'm not saying.
I thought maybe you should get into the NFL concussion cases, all those concussions that are out there from all those helmet to helmet hits. You see so many people getting who play football and sports who are suffering from things like that. So then we'll have to see.
Those and those are brain injuries,
Yes.
and I
Yeah.
could go into that because I've experienced that.
And you said it took a couple years for you to rehab from that?
Oh, it yeah, probably well, yeah, I mean, probably I would say they said about 5 years. And yeah, in the beginning and that's why I can relate to people, I feel for them because You can watch your arm heal, your leg heal, a bone, things like that. But when it's your brain, that's your personality. That's who you are. That's everything about you. Your fears. I remember being so scared and I didn't sleep. And I just, all the stages you go through, but I just remember the fear. It's a horribly scary situation because you don't know. It's like you're a 2-year old in this adult body and you don't know how the world works anymore. And you have to relearn so much.
Well, you relearned pretty well because you speak
Well,
well,
thank
you
you.
write well, you've done a great
Well,
job,
thank you.
and I appreciate your time here with us because I think this has been one of the best conversations I've had with anybody regarding a very, very difficult and very extensive problem that we have in this country. And you brought it to light, and I really appreciate that. I want to thank you for coming
Oh,
on
thank
the
you.
show with us.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me because that was my goal, to start the conversation.
Well, friends, I hope you got as much out of that interview as I did. Laura was delightful. She'd done a wonderful job of research and writing years in research. As she said, she goes down the rabbit hole and you just can't stop. The research is out of this world, but people don't, people read a news article, but when you put it in a novel, it's a different type of situation. As she said, you start to go with the characters more. It's not a statistic. And this has done a fine, fine job of talking about the opioid crisis that's here in America. Now, what am I looking at? Next week, we have a change. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, there's a change coming next week. We have got Sarah Albee coming on. Now, that's another author, yeah. But what does Sarah do? Sarah writes children's books. Children's books and middle school books. Oh, yeah, she got me coming with her new book, Bounce. Yeah, we're going to talk to Sarah about that. We're going to do a little bit of her prior career also, because she was one of those who used to write those like Elmo books for Sesame Street. Oh yeah, it's wonderful topic next week. You're gonna really enjoy Sarah Albee. That's what I'm looking forward to. A little bit lighter topic than what we had today. Hey, anyway, friends, thanks so much for joining us today. I appreciate it. Subscribe, share, do what you got to do. You know, on behalf of my new website. It's going to be called booksandlookspodcast.com. Coming sometime, yeah, very near future, I'm sure. On behalf of my good friends at Podcast Studio X, this is Blaine DeSantis for Books and Looks, saying may all your leaves be pages in a book. So long.